Sponsored by Dennis J. Courtney, M.D., Director of the Courtney Medical Group, located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray, Pennsylvania. For more information or to make an appointment, call 724-942-3002. That's 724-942-3002 for Dennis J. Courtney, M.D.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to AIM Impact on Your Health. AIM Impact on Your Health, where every day our goal is to have you learn at least one thing to help you live better and longer. Of course, AIM Impact on Your Health is heard every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney, and I'm with you each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9. AIM Impact on Your Health, where each day you'll find current medical news, knowledgeable guests, and fascinating health topics, and where we do encourage you to call in to join in. Today, a message, a reminder, hey, just an inquisitive discussion about something looming out there, this issue of, called OBS, organic brain syndrome, a little scarier term, dementia, forgetfulness, Alzheimer's, and team that up with baby boomers, and I think you have a topic that, is at least begging us to come on in and have a chance to talk about it. Our guest today, Mr. Mark Underwood, is going to do just that. The discussion, literally, the dementia epidemic with the baby boomers. Oh my goodness gracious, that's a scary topic for sure, but we never let fear dissuade us from moving into any topic whatsoever. We need to talk about it, enlighten you about it, and find out what you can do about it. And we're going to do that today with Mr. Mark Underwood. He's going to be with us right after our first break. Now, look, if in the discussion with Mark we provoke a need for a question, need for a comment, don't forget, as always, the number to do that is 412-825-6262. That's 412-825-6262. And, oh, yes, I'll give that number additionally throughout the hour. Now, looking at our schedule, and it is really rounding itself out. This Friday, by the way, I'm off to a conference. I'm off to down near the Washington, D.C. area, Dulles Airport region, and we'll be doing a live show. So what I have done is I've selected one, and really you determined the selection. You got more questions for me, both on the air and in the office, about clot busting than any other single topic in recent history. And so consequently, I'm going to replay the show that we did on March 31st when we were discussing clot busting for the first time. So I hope you enjoyed that show. It's going to be a pleasure for me to be able to bring it to you. And then I'll be back with you on Monday. Now, on Monday, this is the interesting show I told you about that came up on the very same day. We had a discussion about compression clothing. You know, we were talking about this with the young lady. Her name was Vera Watkins, and she was a seamstress, and she invented a fabric, and it just opened up our minds to a whole new array of clothing, and for reasons that I never knew, and she backed them up pretty well. Well, on that same day, I got a phone call which said, hey, I have a guest for you, and he wants to discuss compression clothing, and then it didn't stop. The sentence continued, and the lady said, compression clothing for dogs. Well, now that really perked my ears up, because I just had done the show with Vera Watkins, and we weren't talking about any dogs. Turns out there is a real market and a real need for this compression clothing for dogs. It's called a Thunder shirt. And we're going to be talking about the inventor of and dispenser of Thunder shirts on Monday with you. Don't forget, on Wednesday, return guest with Dr. Eric Shapira. He, of course, is the author of the book, A New Wrinkle, What I Learned from my discussion with patients over like a 30-year history of working in the field of gerontology. And then just yesterday, folks, after a long and arduous search, I finally booked Deborah Ray's coming back. Going to be here on the 17th of May talking about her new book. Now, it isn't the book that I thought was in the offing, because I'm waiting for that one. That was her compilation of all of the notes and so forth that her husband, Donald Thoreau, had cherished and kept for so long. And then it turns out she's written another book. She's written in collaboration with some other individuals. The book is called Harmony. It goes hand in hand with that wonderful product we've been talking and promoting since she brought it to us initially anyway, called Fruit of the Spirit. And we're going to be talking with Deborah on the 17th. Always nice to have her back. So as it shakes out right now, that's what we're looking at in terms of the up-and-coming guests. There, of course, will be additional guests added to the list as the month rolls on. Now, in keeping really, and I didn't anticipate that there was going to be such a lead-in possibility, but this subject we're going to be talking about today with our guest, actually last Sunday in the Post-Gazette front page, of course I scour all newspapers, but this one caught my eye because I remember very well when this was unveiled. And the byline of the story in the Post-Gazette, which, as I said, is in keeping with our topic today, goes something like that. So it's something like this. Said that city's namesake compound enables doctors to track Alzheimer treatment. And just to bring you up to speed, a number of years ago now, I'm going to say 6 years ago, 5 or 6 years ago, there was a TV special held and was broadcast nationwide on WQED to reveal the discovery of a compound that was developed right here in Pittsburgh. The name of the compound is called Pittsburgh Compound B. In the trade, it's called PIB. That's just a little acronym for it. Anyway, they said, we're going to have this special. We're going to bring it to you. You're going to be talking about Alzheimer's disease. Everybody needs to be at the radio and TV set to be able to hear this message because it is so powerful. Well, that got my attention too. And so I dialed it up. And they had a spokesperson from Hollywood. And it is a little guy, his name is David Hyde Pierce. At the time, Frasier, the TV show Frasier was really hot. And David Hyde Pierce, of course, played opposite Kelsey Grammer in that particular show. And he became the spokesperson for the compound, for the show. He moderated the show, and so on and so forth. Well, I think if you remember, I did a couple of editorializings after that, because to me, it was just about the most depressing show I'd ever heard. It had lured you into wanting to dial up the show because, well, Alzheimer's is scary, and the fanfare was, come on, you don't want to miss the show. If you have Alzheimer's, if you are a family member of somebody with Alzheimer's, you don't want to miss it. And so, hey, I said, I need medically just to be able to make certain that I hear this show. Well, I did. And all that fanfare was left me pretty flat because what I sifted through was, yes, the invention of a compound that could actually discover whether you had Alzheimer's or not. And that was a new discovery. And it still lingers today as being the only way that you can scientifically diagnose a condition of Alzheimer's by the use of this particular compound, which when it is given, latches on to the plaque in the brain, and then under a special X-ray procedure with a radioactive isotope will light up if, in fact, you have that plaque. But the depressing thing about the show, and as I looked at the article from last Sunday, that depressing element still is completely intertwined and intermingled with that compound, is that, oh yeah, they may be able to diagnose Alzheimer's disease, but they have absolutely nothing to be able to treat it. So the show of 5 or 6 years ago, really, after the big sort of unveiling of the compound, the entire show was the remaining component of it was to talk about how family members can take care of this poor individual with Alzheimer's disease who wasn't going to be able to get any help from any medication or treatment. And so the family certainly knew that as a caregiver, they're going to have constraints placed upon them and strains placed upon them that they needed to begin to anticipate. And so you can see where the compound didn't really receive widespread commendations from, well, maybe the medical community it actually did, but in the consumer community, in the listening public, I think one left that show that day saying, boy, if there's one thing I don't want to get is a test to find out if I have Alzheimer's, because if I do, there's absolutely for sure, I know now, absolutely nothing can be done about it. Okay, so that was the article of a week ago on the Sunday, mentioning the compound again, mentioning that, and here's a quote I thought. This comes from Dr. Klunk, who is involved with the University of Pittsburgh Cancer Institute. He says, we didn't develop PIB, that's that compound, to give people bad news early. The goal was to facilitate the development of therapies. It's just, these many years later, there still are no therapies, or at least they now make a suggestion that there are a couple of entries into a trial period suggesting that they held promise, but still no therapies. And they're saying that we have to be able to diagnose this earlier, because by the time the symptoms of Alzheimer's are expressed and the forgetfulness comes, they say the process is already 10 to 15 years down the road. So if there ever was a good setup to have a discussion today, comes right out of our newspapers of a week ago. Our discussion today is going to be with a gentleman who is a neuroscientist and investigator, researcher, and so we're going to delve into this issue a little more in depth today, but I thought it was uncanny and untimely to have that article show up just this past Sunday, and then to have the guest of today sort of bringing additional information and shed light upon it. So with that being said, and the timeliness of the article, we probably shouldn't hesitate anymore, and we need to get off and take a little bit of a break so we can get Mr. Mark Underwoo back with us for the first time. The dementia epidemic with the baby boomers. Oh my goodness gracious. Get ready, get braced, because the subject is going to be tough to handle. Be right back.
This is Dennis J. Courtney, MD. Have you become confused about how best to manage your health? It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instruction, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you are looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, MD, is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
Honey, just got the word. The company's new health plan has a $5,000 deductible. We have to make sure nobody gets sick this year. Remember what those doctor's visits cost for last year's colds and flu? Oh, sorry. Gotta go. Love you.
We can do this. We can cut the fast food lunches, soda, that's a lot of sugar. We could all take that evening walk. And hey, I heard a program about fruit of the spirit. What did they say? 1 ounce, the equivalent of 5 servings of fruits with herbs and minerals. We could add some to our breakfast protein shakes. Fruit of the Spirit is unique whole fruit puree. Fruit of the Spirit contains fresh fruits native to the Holy Land and alkalizing minerals from the Dead Sea. With no added sugars, Fruit of the Spirit's unique product from 5 years of work from science-based nutritional experts. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer. Fruit of the Spirit, a blessing for your good health. Fruit of the Spirit, convenient, affordable, and delicious. That's 1-800-442-3793. Call them now, 1-800-442-3793.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back once again to AM Impact on Your Health. Heard here on KHB 620 each and every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 8 to 9 o'clock. I'm Dr. Dennis Courtney with you today on this Wednesday version of the show. And preliminarily, of course, we were talking about this issue of organic brain syndrome / forgetfulness / Alzheimer's and the like, based on an article that appeared in our newspapers just a few days ago. Uncanny as it was to determine that today's guest is right in keeping with that topic. We're going to delve into this subject more and more from someone who ought to know a lot more about it. His name is Mr. Mark Underwood. He's a neuroscience researcher and co-founder and president of Quincy Biosciences in Madison, Wisconsin. Mark is responsible for researching the calcium-binding protein found in jellyfish and developed it for the use as a calcium regulator in the human nervous system. We're going to get to find out how it may benefit you who are entering what he claims to be the dementia epidemic or the baby boomers. That's a pretty scary topic. Let's bring the sunshine into it, and let's have a breath of fresh air from our guest today, Mr. Mark Underwood. Mark, thanks for being with us today.
Good morning, Dr. Courtney.
Look, Mark, the issue, I hope you caught just a little bit of what I was saying before I turned to you, because we here in Pittsburgh had a big article in our newspaper this past Sunday. You heard me just briefly mention it. And what it did was to talk about a compound that was invented here in Pittsburgh. You probably know about it, called Pittsburgh Compound B. You ever heard of it?
Yes, sir.
I'm sure you have. And, of course, everybody from Pittsburgh is proud to see that we had something to offer this. But I was talking about a television show that was done when this compound was first discovered. David Hyde Pierce was moderator. Did you remember seeing that show?
No, I don't.
Okay, anyway, David Hyde Pierce was a moderator of the show, and they got everybody fired up to watch it, because they said if you were an Alzheimer's patient or if you were a family member of one, you don't want to miss this. And so what it turned out to be was, hey, we got this wonderful compound. We can now diagnose if you have Alzheimer's disease. That's the good news. The bad news is we can do absolutely nothing about it if you do have it. And so the rest of the show was spent on talking to caregivers about how difficult the job was going to be. With that being said, and having it show up once again in our newspapers this past Sunday, to find out you were our guest today, boy, I'm ready for this topic. I got questions, and my listeners are probably going to have questions. But Mark, talk with us a bit about your history and how is it you come to be so involved with this issue of organic brain syndrome / Alzheimer's disease, and the fact that you now are co-founder and president of Quincy Biosciences in Madison.
Well, long before there was a Quincy Bioscience, long before there was a biotechnology company here in Madison, I became interested in Alzheimer's disease because I have a grandfather that passed away from it. And so that actually was one of the contributing factors that made me personally interested in trying to understand what happens in the brain with Alzheimer's disease, what happens in the brain with other types of neurodegenerative conditions, or just generally what happens that affects our brain that means that we don't have the same memory capabilities that we once had. So for me, that was more of a childhood event that sort of shaped and molded me into wanting to study this in college. And I did study neurochemistry at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee. And we have since gone forward to work on some interesting research. Actually, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, but we work with a particular type of jellyfish protein that has shown benefits to help keep brain cells alive longer. And we, of course, see potential applications of that technology in the future for diseases like we're talking about with Alzheimer's. So anyway, that's my interest in helping people that have Alzheimer's and helping people understand the value of the brain. It's the most magnificent part of the creation. It is certainly the most fascinating organ in the human body, and there's a lot of potential for helping the brain be healthier to help our overall health.
Well, I think I heard in that something that maybe I haven't heard before, which is you developed or are developing, launched, or about to launch something that may have an impact on this disease, because there's just nothing now out there right now. I mean, certainly in the medical world, prescription-wise, there is nothing that I know of. Do you know of anything that's available for the Alzheimer patient?
Well, there are approved compounds approved by the FDA for the treatment of the disease.
Yeah.
But they don't, in my opinion, work very well.
That's right.
And I'm not anti-pharma. I think anyone who you could talk to any physician and they would probably agree with me on that statement.
Oh, I think if you had something that would say, if you take this, you will never have to worry about Alzheimer, but one of your legs will fall off, I think they would still sell a truckload of this stuff. They'd sell the stuff out of the back, because if there's one fear that I think is universal, it's that all of us are just very much afraid that we're going to fall victim to this disease. And that's probably one of the reasons why we probably need to discuss this thing that you're talking about, the dementia epidemic, because the way you see it, and if one just thinks about it for a moment, there is an epidemic coming. Please elaborate on why there is such an epidemic as you see it. And there comes that discussion of baby boomers again.
Yeah, absolutely. The disease Alzheimer's and memory loss issues in general are highly correlated with age. Essentially, the older you are, the more likely you are to have Alzheimer's disease, the more likely you are to have troubles with your memory or the rest of your cognitive thought process. Affecting your brain through the process that's involved in Alzheimer's also affects things like your focus, your ability to pay attention, your ability to communicate, your ability to handle your emotions or express your emotions properly. Once you start damaging brain cells inside the brain, there's a myriad of things that honestly can go wrong. There are things that different parts of the brain break down, which lead to different symptoms in the person who's having these breakdowns. And so in one person, it could certainly be short-term memory. In another person, it could be their ability to process language. They can hear but they can't understand. And certainly in someone else, it might be changing their inhibition so that they don't control their temper very well. They don't control the things that come out of their mouth. And so, I think if anyone's listening and has an older relative or parent that has these conditions, that might be best typified by saying, I can't take my dad anywhere for fear that he's going to embarrass me with what comes out of his mouth. Well, if you've had some of this brain cell loss in the frontal lobes of your brain, which control your inhibition, you might find that you are a little bit more quick-tongued and not quite as filtered as you should be. So you can explain why these different symptoms happen, all boiling down to the basic premise that these brain cells die or are damaged in the disease process and in the aging process. And as that continues to go on with a great swell of baby boomers at the age that they're at now, over the next 20 years, they're all going to hit 65. And that means you have 80 million more people at an advanced stage that are really going to need some help with their brain cells. And if we don't help them now, we're going to have a huge amount of people with Alzheimer's disease, much greater than we have today.
Yeah, you say that by the time 2040 comes around, there'll be 84 million adults that suffer from some form of age-related memory loss. If that isn't an epidemic, I don't know what is. And so those numbers alone are just, one just thinks for a moment about how many of us now cross the threshold and reach the point where these neurodegenerative diseases could have had a time to progress to the extent that the symptoms can show. I don't think one can really differ with the numbers. I think the numbers maybe are all too foretelling. Pretty scary.
Absolutely.
And so I think you said that's about 50%. About 50% of those who are 80 years of age will be probably developing Alzheimer's. Is that the other statistic?
Yes, that's a 1 in 2 chance. So between you and I, one of us is going to have it.
One of us, not going to be me, Mark. Not going to be me. And probably that's the only thing that one could arm themselves and protect themselves with is the hope, literally keeping the fingers crossed that it isn't you, because that's about all there was that you could do about this. They just sort of were carried away by the wind, and if it hits you, then it does, and if it doesn't, you were thankful that it didn't. But boy,
I do have. You sort of mentioned some sunshine. Let's give a little sunshine.
All right, come on for some sunshine.
Okay. We know why these brain cells die. We know that they die. We know that the brain changes as we grow older. We now know why they die. There's a particular protein that's normally expressed in the human brain. It's called a calcium-binding protein. And these proteins keep our brain cells protected, keep our brain cells working well when we're young. And our body makes our own. You know, we in our teens and 20s and 30s, for the most part, we have plenty of these proteins. Our brain cells are protected, and our memories work fine. Okay? However, at about the age of 40, we slow down our ability to produce the protein because of just sort of age-related changes. When our body can't produce the protein, our brain cells aren't as protected, and our memories start to be damaged. Okay? And there's a lot of researchers that have worked on these types of proteins, not just our group here in Madison. So you can certainly cross-reference what I'm talking about. You'll find it's true, absolutely. When the brain loses these protective proteins, it's susceptible to more injury. And that can happen to any part of the brain because of just the basic stresses of life. And then, of course, in certain diseases, there are other processes that are also involved. Well, when these proteins are diminished and we have the problems, it makes the natural solution to say, okay, how do we replace the proteins? How do we get the body to make more of the proteins? So I don't know how to do the latter, but in the first place, we have found from a jellyfish the same type of protein that protects their nervous system. And if you've ever seen a jellyfish, they're sort of simple little creatures. They just look like a floating Ziploc bag out in the ocean. Yeah. There's nothing much to them at all. But they are all nervous systems. That is all that they are. And if you study them, and we have studied them, these jellyfish have the same components protecting their nervous system that we do as humans. So we have taken a protein from them, also a calcium-binding protein, one that was discovered back in the 1960s, and we have been able to apply it to supplement our brain to replace the proteins that have been diminished. So, of course, we started out in the animals in the laboratory, and, of course, we were able to show successfully that by adding this protein, we were able to keep a majority of those brain cells alive longer in the animals that we studied, which is really good news. We were able to then continue to develop it to the point where we were able to test this in people. You know, how did taking this protein help change their memory outlook? How did it change their cognitive functions and so forth? And we showed great benefits to helping people with their memory in that regard. So we've been working on this for the past 15 years, and now we have something that's available that can be taken. It helps to protect the brain cells. It helps people that have memory issues see them start to get better. And we start to see literally results within about 30 days. I mean, it takes months to really reach your optimal level. But that's a pretty quick impact, especially for someone who's been struggling with, memory loss for years and years and years. And it's very effective at helping to protect those cells and push off this memory-related issue that we're talking about.
Boy, a whole bunch of questions just popped in my brain. I'm going to start firing away. Do you mind?
Sure. Please.
Okay, calcium entering the cell, the final act of killing a cell. I'm onto that. I'm by that. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that just about all cell death, no matter where it is more than likely hallmarked by the calcium entering the cell.
That's true.
So the fact that brain cells might die from it, okay, yeah, I'm with you, gotcha, because I can appreciate the fact that just about every cell that dies in the body has that as its final. The calcium pumps just don't work, and the protein you described, I haven't never heard it described that way, is interesting to learn that you can, by replacing that protein, help prevent that final phase. I have heard no mention, however, so I ask you, there's a particular kind of plaque that hallmarks the condition of Alzheimer's disease that accrues in brain tissue. Now, this isn't the cholesterol-laden plaque that that is fearfully observed with respect to the heart and other blood vessels. But in the brain, we get that special kind of plaque. It's amyloid plaque. And so I'll ask you, is it the cart or the horse? What accompanies what? Is it...
Great question.
Okay, go ahead.
And this is something that has been cleared up on a national level over the past year with research. The amyloid plaque does accumulate on the outside of the cell. And what they have found, the amyloid plaque and the protein fragments contribute to causing microscopic holes inside the cell membrane, which literally makes the cell leak, okay? And when the cells leak, they become more porous, and calcium actually floods into the cell through those holes that are formed by the amyloid beta protein and the protein fragments. And so that is the tie between the plaques that you've been talking about and this calcium problem. So what we look at as a solution is we don't know how to stop the plaques, and there's still plenty of room for research to figure that out. That's an important goal. But we can help address, once the calcium's leaking in, literally we can help soak it up with these calcium-binding proteins. And that is part of the thing that makes Alzheimer's happen so fast, is not only do you lose the proteins, but you have this flood of calcium coming in that kills cells very rapidly, much more rapidly than the body can repair itself. And that's why Alzheimer's is memory loss that's highly accelerated. But in general, memory loss from many different events is all the same physiological pathway. This calcium system is interrupted. The cells, before the cells die, they actually become dysfunctional or disabled. And so, you're not able to use them for what you need them for, even before they're dead. But if we can help restore this calcium balance inside the cells, we can slow down how fast they die. We've already proven that. We can probably slow down how fast they become dysfunctional. And some that are partly dysfunctional, we can actually make work again. So we can maybe take a burnt-out light bulb and give it a new life. What this compound does is allow the body then also to help healing itself. And that the body's ability to heal itself is fantastic. So anyway, that's how we tie together the amyloid fragments to this calcium-binding protein.
All right, I got about 20 other questions that popped in my brain. You're doing well so far. Let's keep up the strength, okay? With this plaque buildup, which then I guess is the horse and not the cart, okay? It is what precedes. Did I get that right? I mean, that's the predisposing issue that has to occur first before we ever get to the cell death component, right?
In Alzheimer's specifically, yes.
Okay.
But in other diseases, you will see similar types of bodies that form in different cells in diseases like Parkinson's. You will see different phenomena happen that disrupt the calcium balance, even in brain memory disorders that happen from sports concussions or pesticide exposures or so forth. So in Alzheimer's, the contributing factor is these plaques. In other situations, the brain cells are damaged maybe from a different contributor, but the end result is this calcium problem. So memory problems sort of have that as the connecting tie together, whatever might cause them.
Okay, back to the issue of plaque, which I think we both now agree, and it appears that you agree is the predisposing issue.
Yes.
And it's unique to the brain. It certainly is unique to the brain, because this amyloid doesn't seem to form any place else. It only just does this in brain cells. I don't think anybody knows why just yet, but okay, they don't know why. So there is a decrease in the ability to perfuse the brain that comes along with this plaque, just like the cholesterol-laden plaque and other blood vessels diminishes the flow to that particular organ. So does this happen in the Alzheimer patient? Would that be correct?
Yes.
So the perfusion diminishes. So that leads me to the next logical question, I hope you don't mind, which is, all right, if you have to get any compound to the cell, the greater amount of the perfusion will bring the greater amount of that particular product, whether it happens to be this jellyfish component or anything. And so I would say, you've got to start this, or wouldn't it be true to say that you've got to start these preventative or reversing processes early? Because if you wait until you have so much plaque buildup that the perfusion to that organ is almost brought to nil. And if you look at the brains of these people, they're much smaller, they're shriveled up, they look terrible compared to a healthy brain. would it be the earlier to start, the better opportunity you get to being able to use and replace that particular calcium binding protein?
Absolutely, that is 100% correct.
There we go. All right, folks. Looks like we're on a march. Perfusing, because I'm going to add something to this mix that maybe you've never thought about, that I've found in my own practice has helped. Has to do with perfusion alone. But I'm with you. So the earlier we can start, and the article that I was trying to quote from when I mentioned about the David Hyde Pierce thing and the fact that we have this Pittsburgh compound, is they said that before you start to show any memory loss whatsoever, that you probably have 15 to 20 years worth of processes of degenerative neurological processes, plaque buildups, calcium deaths occurring 15 to 20 years ahead of time. And
That's
so
right.
the earlier, so that was right then. So the earlier you can intervene, the better off you're going to be all the way around. There's the sunshine coming through the window with that, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, and to tie that a little bit more to these proteins, the studies have been done just specifically on how do these proteins change in their expression during our lifespan. And we start to see them diminish starting at around age 40, okay? Now, honestly, you don't see Alzheimer's happening at age 40. Not very often. I mean, there's a type. But most of the time, you see Alzheimer's starting to be diagnosed after the age of 60 or 65, okay? It's because of what you just said. Over that course of time, and I'm just using general ages, okay? Between the ages of 40 and 60, we start losing the proteins at an increasing rate, and this damage starts building up at an increasing rate. Now, keep in mind, we have a tremendous amount of capacity in our brain. Just because this is happening a little bit doesn't mean that we're going to even notice a difference in the beginning. But at some particular point, the process has already happened far enough that now we have a debilitating state of memory loss, not just an inconvenient state of memory loss. And sort of like a ball rolling down the hill, as it goes, it gets faster and faster and faster the longer time it's spent rolling down the hill. And it's hard to catch then. But if you can get it before it really starts to accelerate, that's exactly why earlier is better. And that's why we want to be able to replace these proteins as soon as possible. And certainly around age 40, I find it to be an absolute necessity to start replacing them. Even if you're not seeing memory problems now, I guarantee you everybody loses these proteins. It's a fact of nature. Dogs lose them. I mean, cats lose them. Every species loses these types of proteins, so we need to be proactive in replacing.
This topic is really getting interesting now. Let's unveil and sort of launch for Pittsburgh listeners the product you helped develop. I mean, well, maybe I'll ask you first, what led you to the jellyfish? Is that accidental or is that on purpose? And then after spending some time with the jellyfish and isolating these compounds, you come out with a product. It's called Prevagen. You should be awfully proud of developing that product. Tell us a bit about what led you to the jellyfish, how you found this protein, and then your ability to, I don't know, did you get it? Is this synthetically formed? Does it come from jellyfish itself?
Sure.
Tell us a bit about it. Go ahead.
Well, in my research, I came across an article. This is, again, a long time ago back in college, graduate school, and came across an article how jellyfish stings actually contributed to the course of symptoms in a swimmer that are very similar to multiple sclerosis. And it was a short duration event for this person, and I wanted to figure out what was it in the jellyfish that could keep the jellyfish safe, but yet could inflict this type of problem in a swimmer, in this human. You know, sort of like, why doesn't snake venom kill snakes? You know, how come it's so dangerous otherwise? And anyway, the difference maker in the jellyfish is this calcium binding protein. And it had already been discovered and identified back in the 1960s. It had never been used for any type of health application. It was used to literally, it was a component of a jellyfish species found in Washington State that helped those jellyfish glow in the dark. And which is the interesting chemical investigation done by a couple researchers. And due to their understanding of this process and this protein, this jellyfish, those researchers actually won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in 2008. So you can sort of reference.
That's recent stuff, 2008.
Exactly. And so anyway, there was a lot of research that had already been done on this protein, showing it was safe, showing that it was effective, and showing a couple different biochemical traits that are very important. And I looked at that and picked it up and said, hey, this might work to replace the proteins that we lose as we grow older. And so that's where the research started there. So again, we went through the laboratory studies and literally showed that the protein, when administered, helped keep the brain cells alive longer. Especially, we focused our efforts on a part of the brain called the hippocampus, a part of the brain that is responsible for our short-term memory formation. And then we went into testing in people. We were able to show that not only was it safe for people, we were able to see a significant difference in their behavior. You could see them literally becoming sharper, and we could show that and illustrate that by seeing their memories changing, by seeing their focus changing, and not only would this be recordable in a clinical trial setting, but literally people could just tell us they felt different. They didn't feel foggy. They felt more focused. They were more engaged and in touch and so forth. And that grew to become a product which we make now called Prevagen. And so Prevagen, which is a supplement, it's a over-the-counter product.
Over-the-counter, non-prescription.
Exactly. It's it's easy to get, it's safe, and it's gone from the point where we launched the product into the public domain about 2.5 years ago, and now we're in over 6,000 stores across the country. So it's really gone from the research stage to really being helpful. Caregivers can see this and help their parents. They can help themselves. They can help their spouses. So a lot of good has come out of this. And along the way, since we would have run out of jellyfish had we made it through traditional methods, we developed a process through fermentation that we can make the protein over and over again without harming the ecology or the environment, and making sure that we have an adequate and safe supply of this protein, because we just use one little part of the jellyfish, the protein part, and that we can make that in a way that's safe for human consumption. And so that has developed into the product that is called Prevagen.
So this literally is not a synthetic product. You're able to culture this from a fermentation process. So this is
it is
organic substance. Sure.
It is exactly the same as the jellyfish would make themselves. The design is already there in the jellyfish. We do not want to mess with it at all.
Don't mess with that design. All right. What a story. Really fascinating. Why don't we do this? Let's take a short break. When we come back, I want you to give us some information about this Prevagen, where to get it. We actually need to talk because I'd like to get some in the office. I also want to raise, I want to ask some additional questions about the science investigation component of this. You mentioned some nice things. I want to ask you questions like, well, how many studies did you do? How many people did it involve? I don't expect it to be huge numbers because I think you had to probably finance the majority of this yourself. But I'd like to know the percentage of response, which because I'm sure that you got those kind of numbers, and my listeners want to know that too. Fair enough?
Sounds great.
All right, folks, this conversation, there's a lot of sunshine coming through that window now, isn't there not? For something as scary as this is, you might be able to tame this beast if you plan for it just right. We're going to get back talking about that plan a little more with Mark Underwood. See you in a moment.
Have you been to the doctor lately? Was fatigue top of your complaint list? Even if your doctor asks you what you eat, the recommended 5 servings of fruits and vegetables a day is a dream in your busy schedule. What if you learned of a product 5 years in the formulation that delivers 5 servings of fruits and minerals in just 1 ounce? That's right, it's Fruit of the Spirit. The blessings of Fruit of the Spirit are now formulated into a delicious whole fruit puree product rich in antioxidants and minerals. Your health is more than just a test result. It's a balance of physical, spiritual, and emotional factors. You work regularly to strengthen your faith. Let Fruit of the Spirit help cover your nutritional needs in a convenient and cost-effective ounce a day. Call 1-800-442-3793 for a special promotional offer. Fruit of the Spirit, a blessing for your good health. Fruit of the Spirit, 5 servings of fruits and minerals with no added sugars. That's 1-800-442-3793 for your good health. Call them now, 1-800-442-3793.
This is Dennis J. Courtney, MD. You become confused about how best to manage your health. It's no wonder. It seems that every time you turn on the television or radio, another expert has yet another suggestion for you to follow that seems to be reasonable enough, but no matter how dutifully you follow the instructions, it just doesn't quite produce the results that you were looking for. If this confusion sounds familiar to you, give us a call at the Center for Complementary Health, where we'll make some sense of the confusion based on a blending of traditional and alternative medicine that we've been perfecting over the last 7 years. We offer metabolic nutrition testing, immune system repair, natural hormone replacement therapy, chelation therapy, cutting-edge allergy correction, and a host of other safe and effective alternative therapies.
Dennis J. Courtney, M.D. is located at 3075 Washington Road in McMurray. Phone 724-942-3002.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back once again, AIM Impact on Your Health, here in this Wednesday version of the show. A topic that, hey, it's not so scary at all once you've tamed this thing, huh? Dementia and the up-and-coming epidemic for baby boomers. You've got to take some steps now. We're learning an awful lot through our expert guest today, Mr. Mark Underwood, a neuroscience researcher and developer of a product coming from jellyfish. We learned the product's name, called Prevagen. Mark, you're still there with us, my friend?
Yes, sir.
Talk to us about, first of all, some information about how to get this product for our listeners who are always interested in doing that. Do you got a website and a phone number?
We do. Our website is at Prevagen.com. Prevagen, Prevagen.com. And with any questions, a toll-free number, 888-814-0814. And for the answer to the simple question, where do you get Prevagen? We're available there in all of the DeWalt's health food stores all around Pittsburgh. The wellness store of Johnstown. Actually, I just got an email while we were talking, Dr. Courtney, from the Food and Vitamin Emporium in Bridgeville. And
they're listening to the show.
They are. They're listening to the show.
They're listening. They're out there. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, we are also available in Rite Aid stores. So you can go to your local Rite Aid pharmacy. You can go to your local health food store. Prevagen's hopefully convenient for everyone who's listening in Pittsburgh, and you can certainly find out more about the product at our website at Prevagen.com.
All right, great. And two, we were mentioning off air, and we're going to take the steps to consummate this. You have a professional line, do you not?
We do. We have a professional line, so if you happen to be seeking medical advice from a healthcare professional, we have a stronger dosage that's available through those healthcare practitioners.
Okay.
I don't have names of those in the area, but you can certainly talk with whomever you're seeing about their access to Prevagen Professional, and they can make that work for you.
Well, the Prevagen Professional is going to be available in this office right here. I'll tell you all that right now. I think a very intriguing discussion we're having today. Obviously, my commitment would be to follow through with all the steps. So we'll do just that. And I thank you very much for sharing that initial information so that our friends could get hold of the product. Now, in keeping with some questions that really need to come up, you did some research. Based on that research, you felt you had a winner. Tell us a bit about the people you did the research on, how long they had to take a product, what you were using as measures to determine if the product worked, and how effective and percentage of responders that research revealed to you.
Sure. The first trials we did had, and I'm doing this from my memory, I believe it was 56 participants. They were generally healthy individuals. They had no, diagnosed neurological issues. They ranged in age between the age of 20 and age 78. And this first one was an open-label trial. Everyone took Prevagen. And we looked to see the differences in different measured values in terms of how they felt about their activities of daily living, how they felt about their abilities in terms of memory, word recall, remembering driving directions, and a myriad of different things in the questions. And they all took Prevagen for 3 months. And so we did the test before they ever took Prevagen, and then we took it at different time intervals. We took it at day 8, we took it at day 30, we took it at day 60 and day 90. So those are the intervals that we tested people to see how things were changing with Prevagen. And so the results were pretty cool from this. So we actually started to see the majority of people have benefits from Prevagen after day 30. Many had them even at day 8. We started to see a maximum of the benefit of Prevagen between days 60 and 90. Somewhere between 2 and 3 months after starting to take Prevagen, your brain gets to a point where it has an optimal level and you really start to not just see results, but you're actually performing very well. You've seen a difference. And so those were our first trials. We've also conducted a sleep trial. We've seen a lot of benefits for people who take Prevagen actually with their sleep, which may sound a little funny, but the different processes that are related to sleep are also very intimately tied to how well your brain cells work together. And just a new report that came out just the other day talked about people that have people that dream more can have a 10-fold increase in their memory capabilities. So that was actually just on national news. I saw the little blip on CNN. And so we've done a sleep trial. We've also done a double-blind placebo-controlled trial on memory participants. We're in the midst of another trial, which is a cognitive battery test. And then we also have several different trials that we're undertaking with people that have different neurological issues at our website called hopetrials.com. And at hopetrials.com, we're always enrolling new people in there. So we're continuing to see how well this jellyfish protein benefits people with different levels of neurological change, whether that's age-related and sometimes it might be disease-related. So if you go to hopetrials.com, you can also find out a little bit about that if that's your area of interest or expertise.
Well, that's great. And for my listeners, and boy, I got some of the most educated listeners going, they can get reference to these studies. They could actually read them. How could they get?
If they go to Prevagen.com,
okay,
we've got a link on there, and it's either called Research or Studies, one of the two, and you can download the results.
That's great. That is absolutely great. So they can go check it out themselves, and I think that was very encouraged you with a jellyfish article. How many years earlier finally has led to some wonderful things happening. So I wanted to pose something to you, something I've seen in my practice, and really allowing me to look at a combination approach. Obviously, from an alternative viewpoint, I have a lot of patients that come to me. Usually it's the parents of those patients. They're not the parents, the children of those patients who are saying, my mom or dad, and so on and so forth, really getting bad now. We're worried about having to put mom in a home or dad in a home because safety concerns really mandate that be done now. Is there anything you can do? And I think that you probably have seen that story play out in your own practices.
Well, we have literally seen people that start with Prevagen, and we've had a couple of people. This is in the past 2 or 3 months. They were on Prevagen for several months. They were in assisted living facilities, and from the benefits they were able to see, they were able to literally move back in home with their kids.
Now that is great, because that is for a patient who's way down that road. And so I'd asked you earlier if perfusing the tissues of the brain, the better you could perfuse, the better your product can get in, the better you're able to help. So even in the most clogged up condition that I can imagine, which is the advanced patient, the patient who's set to be put in a home, that's far down the road. The clogging process is well underway. Even at that stage of the game, Prevagen is able to get jellyfish protein, is able to get where it needs to do what it needs to do in order to get responses even in the late stages, as opposed to what you were talking about a moment ago, early stages, even before memory losses are even part of the equation. So did I garnish from that the correct way to interpret?
Yeah.
Okay, okay, great. Well, in the day when patients would come to me, they'd ask me to be able to do something, and I do something called chelation therapy, which really has to do with sort of a way of removing the cholesterol-laden plaque, and I found it to be completely ineffective. It just didn't help at all. And so for the longest time, although I would say they claimed it was helping, I didn't see it.
Okay.
But then we began to just occasionally put patients into a process called ECP, where that's external counterpulsation, where you're able to grow brand new blood vessels. And so it really wouldn't matter if you had plaque in your existing blood vessels. If you could grow brand spanking new ones, your perfusion capability would increase. At least that theoretically is what I thought, and unbelievably so. The responses were amazing. And so for the longest time now I've said, well, the only thing that I think you should consider is ECP, and now would like to combine that with something in the order of this jellyfish calcium protein I'm guessing that the responses could be phenomenal too. What do you think about that as it's just a thought of how to take one therapy that you've experienced, one therapy where I've experienced good results, and putting the two together? Do you think there could be a possibility where the two together would work better than one alone?
Oh, certainly. If there's a better delivery system that allows
the perfusion, if the perfusion could be increased, that would be extremely helpful. Correct?
Absolutely.
All right. We'll just let it go at that right now. Look, we got somebody knocking the door. We got about a minute or two to go. You're going to promise me you're going to come back, by the way. You just can't leave us, salivating and all excited and then go away. So I promise you, ladies and gentlemen, we'll bring Mark back. There's a caller knocking on the door. We'll at least get this one question out of the way before we say goodbye today. Go ahead. You're with Mark. Go right ahead.
Yeah, I was just curious if you ever used that on children with autism.
Huh? Okay.
It's perfectly safe, yes. It's perfectly safe for
kids. Have you ever used it on kids with autism?
I don't treat patients, but I know we have a lot of our customers that have used it for that purpose. So, we don't necessarily know the diagnosis, but I know that we've seen good success.
It has been used in the past?
Yep.
Hey, very, very good. Nice question. Great response.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. With literally a minute to go, I'm going to let you bring this to a conclusion today with a couple of provisos. That professional line, we're going to work with Mark to get it in here. Office. Number two, teaming up ECP with it looks like a winner, and I'm absolutely interested in seeing patients with memory issues that be helpful. Number three, we're bringing Mark back, and we're going to try to find out if we get a date out of him before we say goodbye today. All that being said, Mark, let you put the final touches on our concluding remarks today before we get on out of here.
Oh, sure. Well, thank you. I guess I'll just remind people, because there's maybe a lot of questions that are out there. Call our toll-free number, which is 888-814-0814, and we've got a trained staff here in Madison, Wisconsin to help you with your questions about Prevagen or about maybe something to do with your health that we can help with. We'd be glad to help. Again, that's toll-free 888-814-0814. And, of course, not only you personally that are listening, but your family members. You might know an older relative that has needs in terms of their brain health. We'd love to help them. So I appreciate the time to talk with you, Dr. Courtney.
Really enjoyed that, too, Mark, today with you. We'll bring him back, ladies and gentlemen. He's coming back. Until next week. I'll be back with you on Monday myself. Till next week, this is Dr. Dennis Courtney with Mr. Mark Underwood saying so long for AM Impact on Your Health.
AM Impact on Your Health is sponsored by